Alright, sorry about that. Refreshing some stuff here, that way I can try to get this kind of fleshed out, more manageable for you guys. That way there's no buffering. So, but this is 2000X. It's practically a Mega Man X clone, but the kind of spins on it is that it is roguelike in that it randomizes the enemies and stages and the items that you get. And then on top of that, it's also co-op, so you can play it 2 players. This game is very heavy in RNG, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter a seed. That way it at least guarantees that I get the same stages and bosses that are through the 8 stages. So I'm going to put this in, and we're going to get this going here. So I'm going to start in 3, 2, 1. And I am playing as Ace, which is 0 in this game, so he's going to have the saber. So he's very effective in close range combat. And once this comes up, you'll see that in action. So we're just going to speed through here. And right off the bat, we get kind of a lot of the small and annoying enemies. You'll see there's a glowing one there. That's actually a soul enemy, and I'm going to avoid him for now because he's considerably stronger. But you do get a currency called soul chips if you defeat him. But I'm going to run down here so I can get this chest and hopefully get... Yes, okay. So it's the thrift coupon, which is going to dramatically reduce the cost of items in the shops I come across. And I'm just going to make my way back up to the main path here. Throughout all of these stages, you're going to find a ton of augmentations which power up your characters. They can do things like raise your attack power, raise your defense, increase your speed and jumping. A lot of power and mobility type items. You don't start the run with any of them unless you do certain things like spend your soul chips or play on easy mode. So we want to collect as many as we possibly can. Those pineapple-looking enemies, they're kind of strange. They spit out little bombs, and you either have to defeat the machine or make it to one of the safe zones to get it off. And we're already at the first boss. It's a penguin here, the Shatterbeak. He's going to fly around the stage and shoot ice at us. But especially since he's the first boss in this lineup, he's not going to be terribly tough. The thing with, not only does it randomize the items in the game, it progresses too, so each stage becomes progressively harder and the bosses get more attacks and become progressively harder as well. So at the end of each stage, you're given the option of taking the boss's power or getting additional augmentations. For this one, I'm going to take the boss's power. It shoots an ice beam, an icicle that shatters. It's very useful throughout the run. I'm actually going to keep it throughout this entire run. So, and you'll notice I'm collecting, I'm going a little bit out of my way to collect nuts because they're the game's currency. They'll let me purchase the augmentations, that way I can power up much quicker than I normally would. Stuck with a soul enemy, so I want to use this power and take care of him. But at least that means I won't get the soul enemy down here in this little corridor, so that's actually a little bit of a generous RNG for me. Work my way up toward the top here. I'm going to climb to the top here to get an item. We're actually almost through the second stage already as well. So the blue flame will power up my my special weapons. I get a +1 bonus for each stage that I progress through. So getting it at this point is actually incredibly valuable. And this is the second boss. Twin Astral. So there are 2 of them. They try to work in tandem. They're not going to teleport right away. So I'm going to use the ice power because that's what they're looking use it against the red robot, it actually freezes into place. And that armor will give me 2 hit points at the beginning of each stage. I'm actually going to go with an augmentation for this one instead of taking the power. And I'm going to move on to Froster. And in the shop, the items that I got, one of them is the little nut on the string. If I make a purchase at a vending machine, there's a 50% chance I'll just get the item for free, which definitely adds up over time. And then the other one, the arm that I got, is when I power up my attacks, I don't have to power it up again to get a second one to come out. So the next time I press fire, that one by default is charged up as well. It's a little bit more useful for Nina, who plays like X, but since everything's on sale, it doesn't hurt to go for it. And I did pass up a glory zone. What those are is they're kind of midpoints. You can take on special challenges, and if you win, you get an augmentation. But in this seed, they're not very valuable for Ace, so I'm going to forego them to save time. And I'm going to come up here and get this item. And since there's no icicles on that side, I'm just going to take a shortcut and try to skip a portion of the stage. I was hoping to get a little bit more nuts there, but and then this is the Vile Visage. Takes up most of the screen, but since he's only the 3rd boss, he's not terribly tough. Normally you would use the bomb item to fight him. It's his weakness, and you can actually take his horn off, so that way he stops doing the shield. But still, with what we have, the icicles do suitable damage, and we can take care of him pretty quick. And this is a boss I do want his power, so I'm going to take that. And we're going to go to our first Sky Temple stage. So these levels were added in. This game is still in early access. It's still being developed, but they update the game considerably every 2 weeks. So even though it's in early access, there's still a lot to look forward to, still a lot to play in the current build. But these levels are very vertical based. So if you don't have a lot of mobility augs, it can be pretty frustrating. But with the boss power I got in the last stage, if I use it, I can actually disable those laser beams. So that makes that's for the most part why I make sure to grab that boss power. You can see there, I use it a couple of times to try to save some time from the jump in the air. Missed that just slightly, but on the default settings in 2000X, if you hit spikes, which you've probably seen already, and if you fall down holes, you only take 1 damage instead of outright dying, but you can mark settings to make it more like traditional Mega Man, where those things will kill you immediately. But this is just a normal percent seed, so those are not active. And there's one place I will go out of the way to disable that laser. The really tall lasers, that's where this power, the wave really helps you out. got through that one. So we'll check our items here. See what's in the store. Move faster. I'll take the 2-second hover. So I got a little bit more mobility with the hover. And we'll probably start seeing that next level. But this boss, he's weak to the wave, so I'm going to try to use that as much as possible. It nullifies his projectiles and kills the bats that he unleashes. So it's very effective in a number of ways against this boss. Take that item to get even more armor. You can pick up armor in this game as well. That basically saves as the hit reserve. That way if you take a hit, it reduces your armor instead of reducing your health. And that's another one I'm going to forego with the boss's power. The AUG will do me a bit better going into this stage. And then you can see I use my hover a little bit. So once you start getting augmentations, your mobility really picks up. You'll start flying all over the place. And that's part of what makes this game a ton of fun. You get a lot of powers, and it makes you pretty crazy powerful. The game makes sure to adjust the enemies so they increase in power as well, but you can see my dashes are considerably faster than they were at the beginning of the game because I got more of the ninja sash items. Like it says in the description for the item, you gotta go fast. Shop up here. I believe I picked up an armor set, an armor boost set for each particular item you get. I regain energy, health, and armor for each stage that I enter. Go back to those nuts. So even with the RNG, I'm still in decent shape. And I'm going to use a token on this. Okay. It's usually a waste of time, but you can bank on getting 3 shamrocks, which it gives you a free augmentation. And sometimes that can save you an incredible amount of time and nuts trying to get them later. Kind of ignoring the main boss right away here. I want to use my ice power to block off, if I can hit it, to block off these. The ice weapon is one that I can fire in multiple directions, so even though it's not his true weakness, it's still, overall it's a very valuable item. And I do want his weapon as well. His weapon is actually the next boss's weakness, but it's secondary ability, which you'll see in just a second here, makes it one of the best. So you can see it's a Gatling gun, but if I fire it downward, it lets me basically fly. So if you combine it with certain AUGs, especially the ones that give you a chance to use abilities for free at no cost to your energy, that's basically the prime speedrun strat in this game. And there are certain seeds where people have combined such items and run the game in like 11 to 15 minutes, depending on what the seed actually is. I'm going to go down here. Not only do I want to disable that laser, I want to go into the store. Not a great item selection, but I'll take more armor at the beginning of each stage. And that's the thing, it's kind of a pain to get the Sky Temple stages later, because when it really piles on the enemies, and then makes the platforming trickier. This stage can get pretty hectic at times. Okay, so move forward here. We're almost at the end. All right, there we go. Let's stock up on these items. And we're going to face off against Zor, the Gatekeeper. He's a little unique with his weapon weakness. Let's see what... Nope, we didn't get it right away. His weapon weakness, you can just shoot him with the Gatling gun, but his primary weakness is when he fires his Quint laser, those right there, the Gatling gun actually reflects them right back at him, and that's how you do the most damage to him. It's giving me a lot of single patterns, but you can luck out. He can do that right away, and you can start hitting him right away, but had no such luck on that one. And we just have 2 bosses left to go. This one will take us back to the fire theme stage. Puts a lot of enemies right up front there. So I want to use the ice as much as I can to shatter it and hit as many enemies as I can at once. And those turrets are probably the most annoying enemies in these seconds. Get over all those hazards. Just want to move on. It's interesting to note, if I would have taken that path down below, it takes you to kind of an evil lab, if you will. You can get basically what it would compare to is in RPGs. If you get cursed items, you can take items that give you considerable amounts of power, but they come at the cost of they nerf you in some way, and it's usually pretty significant as well. But some of them can actually be of great assistance to characters. I'm gonna pass that up. I was hoping it would be the spear, but I'd say overall, with this run, I'm getting medium RNG luck. Could certainly be worse, but I'm not getting the best items either, at least for the way that this run is set up. Later stages, we're really starting to pile the enemies on. When it comes with this seed, I would say this is probably the hardest platforming section in the game. It's a vertical climb with a lot of hazards, a lot of enemies. You can see that. Normally. Normally if you hug the wall, you get a little bit better luck climbing up here. This enemy RNG, I'm getting the turrets everywhere. Nope. I'll just take that. As a general rule, if I'm finishing the main stage section of it at more than 3 minutes, I'm doing alright. So I was debating. I could take, there is an item that was there. It's a literal glass cannon. So I could have increased my power at the sake of reducing my defense. But I think I'll forego that in this run since I'm only getting moderate luck on my RNG. bad RNG on your energy levels on this. This is the longest boss fight in the run. Mostly because they get invulnerability frames while they do these special attacks here. When I start them up, I can hit them right now, but with Ace it's a little more dangerous than I get right on top of them. Let my little, I do have an item that gives me a little option style item there, so I can deal some damage from afar while I get in closer. Alright, so final stage. This is the last boss with the Death Lotus at the end of it. If I can luck out and regenerate some of my energy right away. Overall, my RNG has been moderately kind to me, but the only area where it's been really lacking is in providing me energy. So I'm going to climb up here and see what items I can get, and then I'm going to use this high vantage point to skip as much of the stage as I possibly can using the Vulcan gun. And see if you can see if getting the correct items. Oh, nice. Okay. If you have the correct items, getting energy, regenerating energy, you can pretty much skip the entire stage that way. I want to be kind on my energy too because I don't want to leave myself with 0 energy for the end of the stage fighting the boss. So that's already the end of the stage for that one. Let's see what kind of luck I get in getting... Okay. So that'll help out. I can use my token. Let's see what's in the store. I gotta spend my nuts, otherwise I'll just lose them at the end of the game. Okay, I'm gonna take that. That's the helmet I was talking about. I can cast half of my powers for free, which is incredibly helpful if I would have got that not now, at the end of the game. His weakness is the blade we picked up in the last one. But the ice isn't too shabby either. You'll see I'll use the ice to take care of the smaller plants. Because they are defeated in one hit, and the shatter takes care of even more of the smaller plants. There we go. Death Lotus is defeated. And I'm just going to run to the end. And that is time. A little slow. The RTA would be the 2312, but we'll see what the in-game runtime is real quick. That's what's going to put up right here. So 2145, so not too bad, not too bad. But that was 2000X. Again, I said this is in early access. It is on Steam. If you love Mega Man X, I highly recommend checking it out. It's slightly different, but it's the same concept, and it's a really great game. So that was 2000X. I'm going to close down the stream so we can carry forward here, and thank you for watching 2000X.